My name is Amy. I thought I had everything. I lived in a small house in Virginia. The house had a white door. It had a small garden. I loved my house very much. I was 38 years old. I worked as a book editor. I read books every day. I fixed words and sentences. I liked my job. It was quiet and calm, but the best thing in my life was Raphael. He was 40 years old. He worked as an architect. He drew buildings and houses. He was very talented and smart. Raphael was my fiancé. We were engaged. He gave me a beautiful ring. The ring had a small diamond. I wore it every day. I looked at it often. It made me smile. Raphael was a perfect man. He was warm and kind. He always smiled at me. He held my hand when we walked. He said nice things to me. He made me feel safe and loved. Raphael cooked dinner for us every night. He made pasta and fish. He made salad and soup. Everything was delicious. We ate together at the table. We talked about our day. We laughed together. Raphael loved our garden very much. He worked there every weekend. He planted flowers and vegetables. He cut the grass. He watered the plants. The garden looked beautiful because of him. We planned our wedding together. We wanted a fall wedding. The date was in October. We chose a small outdoor place. We invited 50 people. They were our family and friends. I bought a white dress. It was simple but pretty. Raphael bought a dark blue suit. We looked at flowers. We chose white roses. We talked about food and music. Everything was ready. We were so happy. Every morning, Raphael kissed me before work. Every evening, he came home at 6. He hugged me at the door. He told me about his day. I told him about mine. Our life was peaceful and perfect. I trusted Raphael completely. I never worried about him. I never asked questions. I believed everything he said. I thought we had no secrets. I thought our love was pure and true. But one evening, everything changed. It was a Tuesday in September. The sky was dark. The air was cold. I waited for Raphael at home. I made dinner. I set the table. But 6 o'clock came and went. Raphael did not come home. 7 o'clock passed. Then 8 o'clock. I called his phone 3 times. He did not answer. I felt worried. This never happened before. Raphael was always on time. He always called if he was late. At 9 o'clock, I heard the door open. Raphael walked in slowly. His face looked tired. His hair was messy. His clothes looked old and dirty. I ran to him. I hugged him tight. I said, "Where were you?" I was so worried. He smiled at me, but the smile was not real. It looked fake and forced. He said, "I am sorry. I had work. A meeting ran late." I helped him take off his jacket. Then I smelled something strange. The jacket smelled like smoke, but it was not normal smoke. It was different. It was sharp and bitter. It smelled like chemicals. I asked, "What is this smell?" Raphael took the jacket from my hands quickly. He said, "Someone was smoking near me," but his voice was strange. It was tight and nervous. He did not look at my eyes. He looked at the floor. He looked at the wall. He looked everywhere, but at me. I felt something wrong in my stomach. It was a cold, heavy feeling, but I pushed it away. I told myself I was being silly. Raphael loved me. He would never lie to me. He kissed my forehead. He said, "I am very tired. Let me take a shower." He walked to the bathroom fast. He closed the door. I stood in the living room alone. I looked at his jacket on the chair. The strange smell was still there. I shook my head. I went to the kitchen. I heated the dinner. But something was different now. A small seed of doubt was planted in my heart. I did not know it then. But that seed would grow, and it would destroy everything. 2 weeks passed after that strange night. I tried to forget the smell. I tried to forget Raphael's nervous eyes. I told myself everything was fine. But deep inside, I felt uneasy. One Thursday morning, Raphael left for work early. He kissed me goodbye at 7. He grabbed his keys and bag. He walked out the door. I heard his car drive away. I drank my coffee in the kitchen. I read a book for work. The house was quiet and peaceful. Everything seemed normal. Everything seemed safe. Then I heard a sound. It was a buzz. It came from upstairs. I put down my book. I walked up the stairs, slowly. The sound came again. Buzz, buzz, buzz. I followed the sound to our bedroom. There, on the nightstand, sat Raphael's phone. He forgot it at home. This never happened before. Raphael always took his phone. He checked it every few minutes. The phone buzzed again. A new message appeared on the screen. I looked at it. My heart started to beat faster. The message had no words. It had only numbers. Strange numbers in a row. They looked like coordinates, like map points. Nothing else. No name. No explanation. I picked up the phone. My hands shook a little. I looked at the numbers again. Why would someone send this? What did it mean? Who sent it? I wanted to call Raphael. I wanted to ask him, but something stopped me. A voice in my head said, "Wait. Look first, then ask." I put the phone down. I walked to Raphael's office. It was a small room at the end of the hall. He kept the door closed most days. He said he needed quiet to draw. I opened the door slowly. The room was neat and clean. There was a desk near the window. There were shelves with books. There were papers on the desk. They showed building plans and drawings. I walked to the desk. I looked at the papers. They showed normal architecture work, houses, office buildings. Nothing strange, nothing unusual, but I felt something was wrong. I felt it in my bones. I looked around the room again. I looked at the walls. I looked at the shelves. I looked at the floor. The floor. Something about the floor looked different. Near the desk, one board looked newer than the others. The color was slightly different. The wood was cleaner. I kneeled down on the floor. I touched the board with my fingers. It moved a little. My heart beat faster. I pushed the board harder. It lifted up easily. Underneath the board was a hole, a secret compartment. Inside the hole was a metal box. The box was gray and cold. I pulled it out carefully. I opened the box with shaking hands. Inside, I saw things that made my blood freeze. There were 3 passports. I picked up the first one. I opened it. The photo was Raphael's face, but the name was different. It said, Michael Torres. I opened the second passport. Same face, different name. James Cooper. I opened the third one. Again, Raphael's face. Another fake name. David Chen. 3 different names. 3 different countries. All fake. All lies. Under the passports was a small device. It looked like a radio, but it was more complex. It had buttons and wires. It had a small screen. It looked expensive. It looked professional. It looked dangerous. I found a folder under the device. I opened it with cold fingers. Inside were photos. Not family photos. Not wedding photos. These were photos of buildings, government buildings, power plants, military bases, water treatment centers. Each photo had notes. The notes showed details, where the cameras were, where the guards stood, what time people came and went. Everything was recorded. Everything was documented. I found maps too. They showed roads and locations. They had marks and circles. They had codes written in the corners. I saw dates. I saw times. I saw plans. My whole body started to shake. I sat on the floor. The papers fell from my hands. I could not breathe properly. My head felt light and dizzy. Raphael was not an architect. He never was. This was all a lie. A big, terrible lie. He was a spy. He was stealing secrets. He was collecting information about important places, places that kept people safe, places that ran the country, and he was giving this information to someone else, someone dangerous, someone who wanted to hurt people, maybe hurt our country. I looked at the fake passports again. I looked at his smiling face in each one. That face I loved. That face I trusted. That face I kissed every morning. Who was he really? Did I ever know him at all? I put everything back in the box. I put the box back in the hole. I put the board back in place. My hands moved on their own. My mind was empty and numb. I walked back downstairs like a ghost. I sat on the couch. I stared at the wall. The morning sun came through the window, but I felt so cold, so terribly cold. The man I loved did not exist. The man I was going to marry was a stranger, a dangerous stranger, and I had let him into my life, into my home, into my heart. I waited all day for Raphael to come home. I sat on the couch. I did not move. I did not eat. I did not drink water. I took one passport from the box earlier, the one with the name Michael Torres. I put it on the kitchen table, right in the middle, where he would see it immediately. The hours passed slowly. 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. The sun moved across the sky. Shadows grew long in the house. Still, I waited. At 6 o'clock, I heard his car. I heard the engine stop. I heard the car door close. I heard his footsteps on the path. My heart beat so hard. I thought it would break my chest. The front door opened. Raphael walked in smiling. He called out, "Amy, I am home." I did not answer. I sat at the kitchen table. My hands were folded. My face was blank. I looked at him with empty eyes. He walked into the kitchen. He saw me sitting there. His smile faded a little. He said, "Are you okay? You look pale." I did not speak. I just pointed at the table. I pointed at the passport. Raphael looked down. He saw it. His whole body froze. His face turned white. All the blood drained away. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. We stood there in silence. The clock on the wall ticked loudly. Tick, tick, tick. Each second felt like an hour. Finally, I spoke. My voice was cold and hard. I said, "Who is Michael Torres?" Raphael closed his eyes. He took a deep breath. He put his bag down slowly. He pulled out a chair. He sat down across from me. He said nothing for a long time. He just looked at the passport. His hands shook on the table. I asked again, "Who are you really?" He looked up at me. His eyes were full of pain, but I did not care about his pain. Not anymore. He said quietly, "You know already. You looked in my office." "Yes," I said. "I found everything. The passports, the device, the photos, the maps." Raphael put his head in his hands. He said, "I am so sorry, Amy." "Sorry?" My voice got louder. "Sorry? You lied to me. About everything." "Who are you?" He looked at me again. Tears filled his eyes. He said, "My real name is Raphael. That part is true. But I am not an architect. I never was. What are you then?" I asked. But I already knew. I just wanted to hear him say it. "I work for an organization," he said slowly. "I gather information. I send it to them. I have done this for many years. Since I was 25. Long before I met you. You are a spy," I said. The word felt ugly in my mouth. "Yes," he whispered. "And the information you gather? What is it for?" He was quiet. He did not want to answer. "Tell me," I shouted. "What is it for?" "They want to know about government systems," he said. "Power grids, water systems, communication networks, important structures, so they can destroy them," I said. "So they can hurt people, kill people." Raphael did not deny it. He just sat there, silent, guilty. I felt sick. I felt dizzy. The room spun around me. I said, "Everything was a lie. Our whole relationship. You used me." "No, Amy, that is not true." "Then what is true?" I asked. "Tell me one true thing." Raphael fell to his knees, right there on the kitchen floor. He grabbed my hands. His hands were wet with tears. He said, "I love you, Amy. That is true. That is the only real thing in my life. I swear it." I tried to pull my hands away, but he held them tighter. He said, "Everything else is fake. Everything else is a lie. But not this. Not us. Not my love for you. That is real. If you love me," I said, "then stop. Stop this terrible work. Turn yourself in. Make it right." He shook his head slowly. Tears ran down his face. He said, "I cannot stop. I am too deep in this. They will kill me if I stop. They will kill you too. Then we run away, I said. We disappear together. They will find us, he said. They always find people. There is no escape. I pulled my hands away from him. I stood up. I looked down at him, kneeling on the floor. This man I loved, this stranger, I said. Get out of my house. Amy, please get out, I screamed. Get out now. Raphael stood up slowly. He looked at me with broken eyes. He walked to the door. He stopped and turned around. He said, I will always love you. Remember that. Then he left. The door closed behind him. I heard his car start. I heard him drive away. I stood alone in the empty kitchen. The passport still sat on the table, a lie printed on paper. A whole life built on lies. And I cried. I cried for hours. I cried until I had no tears left. Raphael called me the next morning. He called 10 times. I did not answer. He sent messages. I deleted them all. He came to the house. I did not open the door. On the 3rd day, he came again. He knocked for 20 minutes. He said, Amy, please, we need to talk. I can explain everything. I opened the door, but I did not let him in. I stood in the doorway. I looked at him with cold eyes. He said, Can I come in? I thought about it. Then I remembered his words. They will kill you too. If I pushed him away completely, I might be in danger. These people might hurt me. They might think I knew too much. So I made a choice. A cold, calculated choice. I would pretend. I would act normal. I would play his game. But inside, everything was different. I opened the door wider. I said, Come in. Raphael's face lit up with hope. He walked in quickly. He tried to hug me. I stepped back. I said, Do not touch me. His face fell, but he nodded. He understood. We sat in the living room, far apart. We did not look at each other much. He said, I know you are angry. I know you hate me now. But please, Amy, we can still have a life together. I said nothing. I just stared at the wall. He continued, I will be more careful. You will never see this part of my life again. We can go back to how we were. How we were. Like it was real. Like it was ever real. I looked at him. I said slowly, I need time. Time to think. Time to process this. Of course, he said quickly. Take all the time you need. But we cannot tell anyone. I said. About this fight. About what I found. It stays between us. He looked relieved. He said, Yes, absolutely. No one will know. And the wedding, I said. My voice was flat. We keep planning it. We act normal. People cannot suspect anything is wrong. Raphael nodded eagerly. He said, Yes, yes, we will do that. Thank you, Amy. Thank you for giving me another chance. I did not say I was giving him a chance, but he heard what he wanted to hear. The days passed. Raphael came home every evening. We ate dinner together. We talked about small things, the weather, the news, the wedding plans. But at night, we slept in separate rooms. I could not bear to be near him. The smell of him made me sick. The sound of his voice made my skin crawl. During the day, when Raphael was at work, I changed. The soft, trusting Amy died. A new Amy was born. Harder, colder, smarter. I stopped crying. Tears were useless. They changed nothing. They fixed nothing. I started thinking clearly. Raphael was a traitor. He betrayed our country. He helped dangerous people. He put innocent lives at risk, and I was going to stop him. One afternoon, I went to a library in another town. I used a public computer. I searched for government contact information. I found a number, a special number for reporting security threats. I called from a payphone. I had never used a payphone before. My hands shook as I put in the coins. A voice answered. Federal Security Hotline. How can I help you? I took a deep breath. I said, I have information about a spy, a real spy. In Virginia, there was a pause. Then the voice said, Please hold. Another voice came on. A man's voice, deep and serious. He said, "This is Agent Miller. Tell me what you know." "The maps. Everything." Agent Miller listened carefully. He did not interrupt. When I finished, he said, "This is very serious, very important. We need to meet." We met 2 days later, in a coffee shop far from my home. Agent Miller was a tall man. He had gray hair and sharp eyes. He looked at me like he could see into my soul. He said, "What you are doing is brave and dangerous." I said, "I do not care about danger. I care about justice." "Does he suspect anything?" Agent Miller asked. "He thinks I forgave him. He thinks we are back to normal." Agent Miller nodded. He said, "Good. Keep it that way. Pretend everything is fine. Watch him carefully. Tell us everything he does, every person he meets, every place he goes." "And then what?" I asked. "And then we catch him," Agent Miller said. "And everyone he works with," I agreed. We made a plan, a careful plan. I would become a spy too, but I would spy on Raphael. The weeks passed. I played my role perfectly. I smiled at Raphael. I talked about flowers and cake. I showed him my wedding dress. I acted excited and happy. But every night, I wrote notes. I recorded times and dates. I took photos, secretly. I sent everything to Agent Miller. Raphael noticed nothing. He was happy again. He thought he won. He thought love conquered all. He thought I chose him over everything else. But he was wrong. So very wrong. I chose my country. I chose safety. I chose justice. And I would make him pay for every lie, for every betrayal, for every moment of false love. The wedding date came closer, October 10th. Everything was ready. The flowers were ordered. The food was chosen. The guests were invited. Raphael did not know the truth. On our wedding day, he would not marry me. He would meet justice instead. I looked at my engagement ring. The diamonds sparkled in the light. Soon, I would take it off forever. Soon, this nightmare would end. I just had to wait a little longer. Just a little longer. October 10th arrived. The morning sky was bright and blue. The air was cool and fresh. It was a perfect day for a wedding. I woke up early. I did not feel nervous. I did not feel excited. I felt nothing. My heart was ice. My mind was clear and sharp. I put on my white dress. It was simple and beautiful. The dress had long sleeves. The fabric was soft and light. I looked in the mirror. I looked like a bride, but I was not a bride. I was a trap. Under my dress, I wore a small device. Agent Miller gave it to me yesterday. He taped it to my side carefully. It was a tracker. It sent signals to the agents nearby. They would know exactly where I was. They would know when to move. I put on my makeup. I fixed my hair. I put on my mother's pearl necklace. I looked perfect. I looked happy. But inside, I was someone else entirely. My sister came to help me. She smiled and cried happy tears. She said, "You look so beautiful. Raphael is a lucky man." I smiled back. I said, "Thank you." But my smile was fake. Everything was fake. We drove to the ceremony location. It was a small garden outside the city. There were white chairs in rows. There were flowers everywhere. White roses, my favorite. 50 people sat in the chairs. Our family, our friends. They wore nice clothes. They smiled and talked quietly. They were happy for us. They thought this was a celebration. They did not know the truth. They did not know what was about to happen. I stood at the back of the garden. I held a small bunch of flowers, white roses and green leaves. My hands did not shake. I felt calm. I felt ready. The music started. A soft, gentle song. Everyone stood up. They turned to look at me. I walked down the aisle slowly, step by step. I looked straight ahead. I saw Raphael standing at the altar. He wore his dark blue suit. He looked handsome. He looked nervous. He looked happy. When he saw me, his eyes filled with tears, real tears. He smiled at me with so much love, so much hope. I reached the altar. I stood next to him. The minister stood in front of us. He was an old man with white hair. He smiled kindly at us. The ceremony began. The minister talked about love, about trust, about forever. His words felt like knives in my chest. Then came the vows. Raphael turned to me. He took my hands. His hands were warm and soft. Mine were cold as stone. He said, "Amy, I love you more than anything in this world. You are my light, my hope, my future. I promise to take care of you forever. I promise to make you happy. I promise to be honest and true, honest and true." The lies burned in the air between us. He continued, "You saved me from darkness. You made me believe in goodness again. I will spend every day showing you how much I love you." His voice cracked with emotion. Tears ran down his face. He meant every word, or he thought he did. Everyone in the audience said, "Aw." Some people cried. They thought it was beautiful. They thought it was romantic. I looked at Raphael. I looked into his eyes. Those eyes I once loved. Those eyes that lied to me every single day. I leaned closer to him. I whispered very quietly. Only he could hear. I said, "I will never forget this day." He smiled. He thought I meant it in a good way. He thought I was promising my love, but I meant something else entirely. The minister cleared his throat. He said, "Now, before we continue, I must ask, does anyone object to this marriage? Speak now, or stay silent forever." The garden was quiet. Everyone waited. No one moved. No one spoke. Then I heard them. Car doors. Footsteps. Many footsteps. Fast and heavy. Suddenly, men in dark suits rushed into the garden. 10 men. 20 men. They came from all sides. They wore badges. They carried guns. People screamed. People stood up. Chairs fell over. Flowers scattered on the ground. The agents surrounded the altar. They surrounded Raphael. One agent grabbed his arms. Another pulled out handcuffs. Raphael's face went white. He looked at me. His eyes were full of shock, full of confusion, full of fear. He said, "Amy, what is happening?" I stepped back from him. I said clearly, I called them. I told them everything. I gave them all the proof they needed. "You?" His voice was a whisper. "You did this?" "Yes," I said. "I did this." Agent Miller walked up to us. He looked at Raphael. He said, "Raphael Garcia, you are under arrest for espionage, for treason, for crimes against the United States." The agents turned Raphael around. They put the handcuffs on his wrists. Click, click. The sound was final. The sound was justice. Raphael looked at me over his shoulder. Tears poured from his eyes. He said, "How could you? I loved you." I walked closer to him. I looked him in the eyes one last time. I said, "You are a traitor. You betrayed our country. You put innocent people in danger. Love does not excuse that. Nothing excuses that." I reached up. I took off my engagement ring. The diamond caught the sunlight one last time. I took his handcuffed hands. I dropped the ring into his palm. I said, "This was never real. Goodbye, Raphael." The agents pulled him away. They walked him through the garden, past the shocked guests, past the fallen chairs, past the scattered flowers. People stared at me. Some looked angry. Some looked confused. My sister ran to me. She said, "Amy, what just happened?" But I could not answer. I just watched Raphael disappear into a black car. I watched the car drive away. The wedding was over, but my work was done. My country was safer now. Justice was served, and I felt nothing at all. The trial lasted 3 months. I had to testify in court. I sat in a chair. I told the judge everything. I showed them the passports. I showed them the photos. I showed them all the evidence. Raphael sat across the room. He wore an orange prison uniform. He looked thin and tired. He looked at me the whole time. His eyes were full of sadness, full of pain. But I did not look back. I could not. I told my story. Then I left. The judge made his decision. Raphael was guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison. No parole. No second chances. He would stay there until he died. I felt relief. I felt satisfaction. But I also felt empty. A piece of me died with that verdict. After the trial, I left Virginia. I could not stay there anymore. Every street reminded me of him. Every corner held a memory, a false memory, a lie. I moved to Boston. It was a big city. It was far away. I started over completely. I got a new job at a publishing company. I worked hard every day. I focused on my career. I read manuscripts. I edited books. I met with authors. I built something real, something true. 2 years passed. I became successful. I got promoted. I earned respect. People knew my name. They valued my work. I bought a nice apartment. I made new friends. I created a new life. But I was alone. I dated sometimes. Nice men asked me to dinner. I said yes. We talked. We laughed. But I felt nothing. My heart was locked away, buried deep where no one could reach it. Every year on October 10th, I stayed home. I did not go to work. I did not see friends. I closed my curtains. I turned off my phone. This year was the same. October 10th, 3 years after the wedding that never was. I sat by my window in the dark. I held a cup of tea. The tea got cold. I did not drink it. I thought about Raphael, about the man I thought he was, the man who cooked dinner, the man who planted flowers, the man who smiled at me every morning. That man never existed, but I loved him anyway. I loved an illusion, a ghost, a dream. I cried. Tears ran down my face. I did not stop them. I let them fall. I did not regret what I did. I would do it again. Raphael was dangerous. He hurt people. He deserved punishment. But that did not stop the pain. Justice did not heal my heart. It only made it quiet. I looked out the window. The city lights sparkled below. People walked on the streets. They laughed. They held hands. They lived their lives. I was safe now. My country was safe. The right choice was made, but safety came at a cost. A terrible cost, I whispered to the empty room, to myself, to the ghost of a love that never was. I said, safety has a price, and I paid for it with my heart. The words hung in the air, true words, final words. I finished my cold tea. I wiped my tears. Tomorrow, I would be strong again. I would go back to work. I would smile. I would live. But tonight, I mourned. I mourned for the life I lost, for the man who never really existed, for the innocent woman I used to be. Tomorrow would come, and I would survive. I always did. Thank you for letting this story stay with you for a moment. If one line made you feel understood, please give it a like. You can share this video with anyone who loves calm stories and simple English. And don't forget to subscribe to Teddy English Story. It's free, but it tells us someone is listening from somewhere in the world. Turn on the bell so you don't miss our next story. We're already working on it for you.